All true grasses belong to the plant family called Poaceae. With over 700 genera and about 12,000 species, it's the 5th largest plant family. Now, when we talk about ornamental grasses, however, not all ornamental grasses are true grasses. Starting us off, one of the most common ornamental grasses that we often talk about is monkey grass, or some people call it lily turf. Now, this is not actually a true grass, as it's in the family Asparagaceae. Now, there's 2 typical species that we often have in our garden landscape, and that's Liriope muscari, which has a much wider leaf to it, and also is not quite as aggressive. It will spread. Now, Liriope spicata is one that we also often have, and that one is very much more aggressive than muscari, but it has a narrower leaf to it, so that's one way to tell them apart. Now, other than that, they both get to be about a foot tall. They're very low maintenance and can handle most environmental conditions. They both come in a range of flowers between whites to purples and blues, and then they also can be solid green or a variegation. Now, what's nice about this is they handle really good shade conditions, and so sometimes we have trouble getting our turf grass to grow in shady climates, but this works well under those trees. It is very low maintenance. It really doesn't require anything during the season. The only maintenance that it requires is, like some of your other perennial ornamental grasses, it's going to need to be cut back in late winter, in February, early March, before that new vegetation starts to emerge. That'll allow you to have the dead gone, so you only see the nice green leaves coming through the next season. Now, the other thing that's a dead giveaway on this, that it's not in the Poaceae family, is those flowers, when they start to bloom, they're going to turn later on to fruits that almost look like little blackberries or blueberries on there. And so that's another giveaway that this is not in the Poaceae family. Staying in the same plant family but a different genus, we have Mondo grass that's also considered an ornamental grass. Now, while this looks very similar to the monkey grass, the flowers actually are going to be a soft pink bell shape to them instead of a spike of flowers. Now, this particular cultivar is called nigrescens, which is one of the darkest, blackest perennials that is out there on the market. You can see how it's got that nice dark vegetation to it. Now, most Mondo grasses will get about 8 to 12 inches tall, but there is dwarf cultivars on the market that will remain 1 to 2 inches in height. Another plant that's often mistaken for a grass is sweet flag. Now, sweet flag, while it's never been in the Poaceae family, was in the arum family, but recently moved into its own family, the Coraceae family. The reason why it was moved was because it does not have the spathe-like flower that you often see in the arums. It's called sweet flag because when you crush it, it releases a sweet fragrance. Now, this is a perennial, being hardy from zones 5 to 9. Now, you want to make sure it's got plenty of moisture because the first signs of dryness will actually scorch the leaves, and you'll see some browning in those leaves. The other thing, to kind of get it through the heat of our summer, it does really appreciate some shade. So make sure that you have it in a partly shady condition. Otherwise, it probably will look worse in August. This particular cultivar is called Ogon, and it has kind of a yellow variegation to it and gets about a foot tall. There is a species that has naturalized in North America because it was introduced in the 1600s, and so you might find it growing in the wild. But there is a cultivar that's called varieties that gets 2 to 3 feet tall that is on the market and looks similar to the vegetation that you find in a variegated iris. There's another group of grass lookalikes that we often know about in the home landscape, and that's sedges. Now, some sedges are considered weeds, such as yellow and purple nut sedge, but there are some sedges or carex that we like in our home landscape. One of the more popular genus species is Carex oshimonensis, and this is one of those cultivars. Now, most carex prefer part shade, and they can really stress in the heat of the summer, so you want to make sure they have plenty of moisture around their roots. This particular cultivar is called Eversheen, and it has a strong lime yellow midrib and glossy green margins. Now, there's several other cultivars on the market. Everio, which forms a bigger clump and has overall yellow foliage. There's Evergold, which has a yellowish midrib with green margins. And Everlime, in contrast, has lime green margins and a green midrib. All of these will form about a 1-foot high clump, and they make nice plants to put in the front of your shade garden, or also they're nice accent plants for your containers. As the old saying goes, sedges have edges and rushes are round, and that's because rushes have round stems to them. This particular rush is called Blue Dart, which has a nice blue-green foliage to it, and you can see it's very upright. It's got strong vertical lines to add to your landscape, and it doesn't tend to flop as much as some of the other ornamental grasses that we've mentioned, so it's going to give you this strong vertical element into your garden. Now, this particular rush, as some of the other rushes, they work well in moist conditions, are a great addition to your shade garden, being hardy from zones 2 to 9. Corkscrew rush will give you a different look with its very curly stems. It almost adds more of a whimsical touch to the garden. It makes a great plant to add to the water garden, or one that you add into a container that is well watered. Horsetail rush is another plant commonly used as a bog plant in water gardens, but it's not a grass, nor is it a rush, as the name may suggest. Equisetum is the only surviving genus of a class of primitive vascular plants that dates back about 350 million years ago. While they are not ferns either, they are a bit more similar because instead of flowers, they reproduce by spores. It is also often called scouring rush because Native Americans used the stems of this plant, which are ribbed and have a high content of silica, to scrub their pots and pans. As a native, it is most often found along streams and in wet conditions. Although this is a native plant to North America, I always say there's a reason that it has outlasted the dinosaurs. With its rhizomatous root system, it's a very aggressive spreader, even in unideal conditions. Even though none of these that we've mentioned are true grasses, they offer the same versatility with minimal maintenance, just like the other true ornamental grasses. There you have it. We have covered ornamental grasses, from annuals to perennials, natives to shade-loving, even grasses that aren't really true grasses. We have covered all the ornamental grasses that are available, and with such versatility, I know there's one that's perfect for your garden.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.